For any event on the dashboard, your choice boils down to one of two things. Either work with the registrations from the event, and that includes updating attendees, running reports, and sending email, or work with the settings of the event, and that includes the dates, prices, and information you collect. In this video, we're going to be looking at the settings for the event. You can also reach this information at any time by clicking on Events in the top left navigation. From here, you'll have a complete list of all the events you've ever held in the system. For this video, we'll choose the settings for this VIR driver school. Beginning with the basic settings screen, these are the big knobs that you can tune and tweak for your event. It includes the name of the event, the venue, the type of event, whether the event is visible. It includes your registration start and stop dates as well as the dates of the event. We allow you to specify the time that the event will open for registration and close as well. You can allow or disallow attendees to edit their own registrations. You can specify a registrar on a per event basis. And if we scroll down, we'll see our cancellation policy and online payments controls. This account is using the premium plan, so it has our deferred payment processing plan included. Anytime you update this information, the site will instantly reflect your changes. There's no waiting to see things happen. The only reason why this event is not currently on the calendar and open for registration is because our event visible flag is set to no. This is a handy way of testing and setting up your event before you actually make it visible on the site. A little trick is that although the event is set to no for visibility, you can still use the direct link to go to the event. While we have most of the permanent road racing facilities in the United States, if your organization runs events at local facilities like autocross or awards banquets or things like that, you won't find your entry in the list here. Instead, you can use the Add a Venue link to add a new entry to the list at any time. Let's take a look at the text and waiver for the event. The registration process from the attendee's point of view is 5 steps. We allow you to customize the copy and graphics that appear on each of those 5 steps. Beginning with the advertisement, this is the first page they'll see when they click on your event from the calendar or use your direct link. What you'll see across the top here are a couple of Microsoft Word style toolbars that allow you to format your text without having to know HTML. You can also cut and paste copy into here from Microsoft Word or from PDFs, but we have to warn you that many times Microsoft Word creates a real mess of the information. You may be better off just entering it by hand. If you know HTML and you prefer to work with the code directly, you can use the source button to take a look. From the advertisement step, if the user continues, they'll be taken to the pre-registration requirements page, where the advertisement copy tends to have the rah 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 why you should come out and have a great time with us copy. The pre-registration requirements screen tends to have the nitty-gritty details about the event. It might have age requirements, helmet requirements, previous experience requirements, and so forth. You might also include details about the information that are required to participate. If the user continues, they'll be taken to the registration form. You can optionally include a waiver on the registration form. If you put text into this box, it will force the user to check a box acknowledging that they've read and they agree to the copy. This doesn't replace your paper waiver at the track or at the venue, but it's one more way of making sure that people have seen your legal requirements and that they agree to them. When the user completes the registration form successfully, they'll be taken to the payment page if you have payments enabled. If payments are set to optional, you can choose to include additional information about how to mail a check, pay with cash, or make alternative forms for payment. If payments required and they complete it successfully, or payments not allowed and they continue on, the user will be taken to a confirmation page. This is the on-screen receipt that they see that confirms the things that they've purchased for the event and the fact that it's been received successfully. There's 2 versions of this. One is displayed on the web page, which allows rich text formatting, and the other is sent via email at the same time. In this box, you can only provide plain text as to improve the chances that the email actually reaches the inbox. Generally speaking, people put the same content into both fields. One is formatted for the web and one is formatted for email. Be sure when you make changes here to always click Save Text and Waiver at the bottom. We've thrown away more than a good set of edits by forgetting to do so. Okay, back to the top. Every event can optionally have a public attendee list. On the attendee list, we let you control which statuses you'll be able to include, and we'll talk about the workflow and the statuses a little bit later. If you uncheck all of these boxes, you'll have no attendee list, and the entire entry list will be private and only visible to the administrators. If you choose to have an attendee list, you can optionally control what appears on the attendee list. You can restrict it to include things like class, group, vehicle, number, instructor, and so forth, and you can do so on a per segment basis. By default, the attendee list is only visible to other attendees. However, you can check this box and make it public to the internet at large. Unless you have some kind of privacy concerns, most organizations make it public to the internet to encourage other people to sign up. This is particularly true of competitive events like club racing or autocross, where people may see their competitors are going and that may spur them to register. At the top of the attendee list, you can also include a message. Since this information is not required to look at, we recommend only putting general information here, but nothing urgent or critical. We do offer a results page, which shows up on the dashboard after the event has passed, but generally speaking, this is only used by very small organizations that don't have a good web presence or don't have a way to publish their own results. Most clubs and organizations will publish this on their own website or using a service like mylapse.com. Now let's talk about event segments. There are two concepts in Motorsport Reg that are unique to our service. One of them is segments. You can think of a segment as a bucket that you put people into in order to improve your email and your reporting. You can also think of segments as sub-events. If you have an event where a person can attend only a portion of the event, and where you might want to have an entry list that only shows that portion of the event, that's what a segment is for. In the example we're looking at here, it's a weekend driving school that has an optional Friday. So we've created two segments, because most likely we're going to have different people attending Friday than we are Saturday, Sunday. If we only had one entry list, we wouldn't be able to tell who was attending which day. Using segments is a good way to break your people up so that when it comes time for reporting, you get exactly the level of detail you're looking for. If you look at our event recipes in the online help, you'll see a variety of configurations that illustrate how you might use one or more segments for events. What also makes segments useful are that you can customize the classes, groups, and numbers that you use on a per segment basis. Since this is a weekend driving school, the Saturday-Sunday portion is all or nothing. You must attend both days or none at all. Because it's a driving school, we're not using reserved numbers. However, we are limiting the classes for this portion of the event to only include advanced, intermediate, and novice. The instructors don't have a run group during the weekend. If we were using groups in addition to classes, we could also control those here. And finally, if your classes must run in a specific run group, then you can also map them from one to the other. If you take a look at some of our club race setups, you'll see how this works. While many events may only have one segment, you can think of a more complex event like a weekend club race where there's two races, a test day, and an enduro. In that event, you might have as many as 4 separate entry lists because people may register for one or all of the events. Having 4 different segments allows you to have individual buckets for each portion of the event, and then narrow and filter your reports and email blaster to just those segments as necessary. The general rule is to create one segment for the minimum portion of an event that somebody can participate in. So if you have a 3-day event, but the person can only register for all 3 days, you don't need 3 different segments, you would only need one. Again, take a look at the recipes in the online help as they'll give you a lot of ideas on how to use segments for your events. Now let's take a look at our form builder. The form builder is a drag and drop application that allows you to create simple or complex registration forms using one interface. Working from left to right, we have the parts bin, which are all of the things that you can put on the registration form. This includes event questions, packages, and assigners. The form layout is the outline or flowchart version of the registration form and how you as the organizer work with it. In the rightmost pane, we can preview the registration form exactly as it will appear to the attendees. In this video, we'll be discussing how the form builder works, but if you want to see actual event configurations, take a look at our event recipes list in the online documentation. In the parts bin, we can have event questions, packages, and assigners. Using the wrench at the top, we can add new ones, we can filter this list, we can clone to make copies quickly, we can delete, or we can refresh. We can also right-click anywhere to get the same menus. The three types of objects that we have here are event questions. This is just like a club question, except that it collects information on a per event basis. You'll see you have a question, help text that goes along with it, the kind of answer you want to collect from the user. You can make the question required or optional, and if you would prefer to have the user pick from a drop-down list instead of enter free-form text, you can also specify the answer list. You can think about how this might be helpful when you want to collect t-shirt size, for example. Rather than let the user type in whatever they want, you can restrict the choices to M, L, and XL. After you make changes, don't forget to click Save. The second type of item we have is a package. And packages are actually broken out into two tiers: packages and inventory items. What you'll notice is that packages have pricing associated with them. In this case, it's actually negative because this is a discount. Inventory items, by contrast, have a quantity associated with them. Any package can include one or more inventory items. The reason we have this distinction is so you can sell a Saturday and a Sunday separately, but also sell them together at a discounted or different price. This flexibility allows you to have very complex registration forms and very complex pricing strategies, but still never sell more than you actually have available. On a per registration basis, you can also control how many the person must buy with the minimum purchase limit, how many they can buy with the maximum, what the form defaults to, and how many they can buy for free before they begin being charged. If minimum is greater than 0, it effectively makes it a required item. If the minimum and maximum are the same number, it also makes it a required item of that quantity. You can think of a t-shirt item as being one where we might have a minimum of 0, a maximum of 5, a default of 1, and a comps free of 1. And what that would say is that the person gets one t-shirt for free, but they could also order up to 4 more and then pay the $15 or $20 per t-shirt. If they wanted to, they could also opt out of the t-shirt altogether and select 0. Remember, the purchase limits control what a single registration can buy. The inventory item quantities control how many are available in the big picture. We also show you the quantity that you've sold to date, so when you're talking about a potential waitlist situation, you can see exactly how many you have and how many you've sold. You can control waitlisting on a per package basis using this checkbox here. Simple events may have just one inventory item per package, but this event, which has a Friday, Saturday, Sunday option, we can see includes 2 inventory items. The benefit here is that even if we sell out our Saturday, Sunday option, all 100 seats are gone, what will happen is the Friday, Saturday, Sunday option will either disappear from the registration form or will turn into a waitlist scenario. This way you can have any kind of pricing strategy you want while still ensuring you never sell more than what you have available. The third kind of thing that you can put on your registration form is an assigner. The assigner collects information like vehicle, class, segment, number, and so forth to create assignments. You can see here that this particular assigner is going to create an assignment in Saturday, Sunday, and the Friday segments that we looked at just a few minutes ago. You can optionally include some help text, and you get to choose what the person gets to enter. If you don't want them to enter their own class, you could uncheck this box. If on the other hand you wanted to force them to a particular class, you could choose it from the drop-down. In this way you can do everything from not allow them to make a selection, to let them pick their own, to force them into a particular class. This option also exists for groups if you have groups defined. If you're an autocross organization that uses SCCA rules, you may also include PACS, which is a class leveling algorithm that allows Corvettes to run against Chevettes. If you don't run solo and you don't run SCCA style solo, this probably won't be of interest to you. If you allow the user to pick their own vehicle number, we'll do one of two things. We'll either provide them with a box where they can enter any number they want, or if your segment is using a reserved number pool that we looked at just a few minutes ago, and that you configure under Club Profile, it will pick up on that number pool and enforce that selection. This can be used for any case where you want to have a reserved or permanent number system. In the center pane is how all of this comes together in order to form the structure of the registration form. The form will appear in this general order from top to bottom. However, if you nest things under each other, it forces the user to make selections before they'll actually see the sub-choices. Let's take a look at the preview. We can see that our questions line up here nice in the same order that they appear in the form layout. And then we see these options, where if we select one of them, we then have the following options. The way that the order form reveals and hides subsequent or children information allows us to build complex registration forms, but make them very usable and very simple to the attendee. One thing you might have noticed is that these set of options are mutually exclusive. There are two additional kinds of things you can put in your registration form using the form layout directly. Looking at the form layout wrench, we have the ability to add a new group and a new branch. A group is a mutually exclusive set of options. If you want the user to only be able to pick one of many choices, you want to put all of those choices into a single group. A branch, on the other hand, helps clean up the registration form so that if you have a variety of trees that a user can go down in terms of making choices, a branch can help simplify the top level or reduce the number of choices visible at the outset. Let's take a look at what this looks like. We'll create a sample branch. And we'll drag and drop some things from the parts bin onto the form layout. You can see we have a simple drag and drop method, and the icon helps indicate where things will fall. The plus icon is showing it will be added to this item as a child, but we can also drag things and drop them in between each other. If you look at the icon, it'll indicate where it's going to fall. In this case, it'll fall between the two existing options. Now let's take a look at how this will appear to the attendee. The sample branch appears just as a checkbox. If we select it, then we'll see our items below it. We'll go ahead and remove this one from this registration form. And now take a look at the rest of the form layout options. Each item on the form has a couple of additional options. One is an additional date range that you can limit the visibility for. By default, all of these items will only be visible between the date that registration opens and registration closes. However, you may have certain circumstances where you want something to be available for only part of the registration time. Examples include early bird discounts or late penalty fees, or perhaps you have a cutoff date to submit banquet information to a caterer. All of these are examples where you might include a sunrise or a sunset date on a single item on the registration form. You can also control who this item is visible to based upon their flags on their member profile. And finally, for complex rules that you may want to enforce on the registration form, we also have validation rules and actions. In this case, the validation rule is checking to see if the person is not 18. If so, it throws an error and prevents them from registering. Validation rules can be used for a number of items, including transponder validation, car number validation, make and model validation, membership verification, and other items. Take a look at the documentation for more ideas about how to use validation rules in the event recipes. Just like with the parts bin, we can also right-click inside of the form layout and do things like add new or clone. This can be a very fast way of duplicating parts of your registration form to create similar or alternate scenarios the user can register for. Okay, let's take a look at the preview. While we can preview the registration form inside the form builder, the remaining steps can be previewed here. There's no need to log out or log in as an attendee or to register yourself for the event. Instead, you can preview things here exactly as the attendee will see them. Let's take a look at the first step of the registration process, the advertisement page. Clicking the link will pop open a new window, which shows us the page exactly as the attendee will see it. It includes our boilerplate information about the venue and host, as well as the customizable text that you can put into the site. This content can include images, text, formatting, etc. We can step through the registration process by clicking the Continue button. Now we're looking at the pre-registration requirements screen. If we continue again, it will take us to the registration form. We can also click here to close this pop-up window and go back to the preview list. It's worth noting that on the confirmations, which are the receipts, that we will oftentimes pull in bogus information down here at the bottom to simply show you how things will appear. This isn't necessarily what you selected, but it's our way of just filling in some dummy information in order to show you the receipt. The important thing is to take a look at how your customizable confirmation text appears and make sure it's the correct information. Go ahead and close the window to go back to the preview. The last thing I want to show you is how to create new events. Clicking on Events in the top black navigation, we can use this link at the top to create a new event. While you can't create new events from scratch, by far and above the easiest way to create a new event is to clone a previous event. In this example, we'll try cloning our Weekend School with Optional Friday, the event we've been looking at. Instead of setting everything up from scratch, instead we simply need to change the dates and times in the venue, and that will create the basic bones of our event. From there, we'll be able to use the form builder to update pricing or other information. We highly recommend cloning events that have worked well for you in the past to avoid making mistakes or taking up unnecessary time in creating new events. Okay, that's setting up events. For more information on how to set up events that you run, take a look at our event recipes in the online documentation, which will show you everything from autocrosses to complex club races. Rather than go back to the dashboard or the events page, you can use this shortcut link to take you to the registrations for this event.